In the vast silence of space, the exploration vessel Solace drifted quietly through a sea of stars. Inside the ship, Captain Laura Hayes sat in the command chair, her eyes fixed on the glowing screens before her. The crew worked silently around her, each person absorbed in their tasks. For weeks, they had been mapping uncharted star systems, searching for anything unusual. So far, the mission had been quiet, too quiet. Suddenly, the calm was broken by a sharp beep from the communications console. Ryan Carter, the ship's communications officer, turned his head sharply. His fingers danced across the controls as he tried to isolate the source of the signal. "Captain," he said, his voice tinged with curiosity, "we're picking up something strange." Laura stood and walked over to where Ryan was seated. "What is it?" she asked, leaning slightly to get a better look at the screen. "It's faint, but it's definitely artificial," Ryan replied. "Not like anything we've encountered before." The rest of the crew paused what they were doing and looked up. Even Daniel Brooks, the ship's astrophysicist, pushed away from his workstation to join them. "Artificial signals usually mean one thing," Daniel said, his tone thoughtful. "Someone, or something, is trying to communicate." Ryan continued to adjust the settings, narrowing down the frequency. Slowly, fragments of the signal began to emerge. At first, it sounded like static, but then came a series of tones, repeating patterns that seemed deliberate. And then, almost impossibly, words began to form. "It's English," Ryan whispered, his eyes widening in disbelief. He replayed the message, adjusting the filters to clean up the distortion. Faintly, amidst the noise, they heard it. "Earth, humanity." The room fell silent. Everyone exchanged uneasy glances. Earth was a distant memory, a planet long gone, consumed by its dying sun tens of thousands of years ago. How could there be a message in English coming from deep space? It didn't make sense. Laura straightened up, her mind racing. "Can you trace the origin?" she asked, her voice steady despite the shock rippling through her. Ryan nodded and began working on triangulating the signal source. After a few tense moments, he shook his head. "It's not close," he said. "Whoever, or whatever, sent this, it's been traveling for a very long time." Daniel stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "If it's been traveling for that long, it must have originated from somewhere near Earth's system," he said slowly. "But that's impossible. There's nothing left there." Laura crossed her arms, thinking hard. "We need to figure out what this is," she said firmly. "Decode as much of the message as you can, Ryan. Daniel, I want you to analyze the signal. Let's find out where it came from, and why." As the crew returned to their stations, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was more than just a random anomaly. The signal felt personal, as though it had been waiting specifically for them to hear it. She glanced at the main screen, which displayed the endless expanse of stars outside. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, was the answer to a mystery that had haunted humanity for millennia. For now, all they had were fragments of a message and a growing sense of unease. But Laura knew one thing for certain. They couldn't ignore it. Whatever this signal was, it demanded their attention. And it might change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. As the crew of the Solace worked to decipher more of the mysterious signal, a growing sense of unease settled over the ship. Ryan Carter sat hunched over his console, his fingers moving quickly as he tried to clean up the distorted transmission. Each new fragment of the message sent chills down his spine. Words like "remember," "warning," and "last hope" began to emerge from the static. It was clear now that this wasn't just a random broadcast. It had purpose. Laura Hayes paced back and forth near the communication station, her mind racing with questions. Who could have sent this? And why would they send it so far into space, knowing it might never be heard? She glanced at Daniel Brooks, who stood nearby, staring at a star chart displayed on one of the screens. His expression was troubled, his brow furrowed in deep thought. "Daniel," Laura said finally, breaking the silence, "what are you thinking?" He turned to face her, his voice low but steady. "I've been running calculations based on the signal's strength and direction," he explained. "If my numbers are right, this message has been traveling through space for over 40,000 years." The room went quiet again. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at him. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Earth itself had ceased to exist long before that. Its sun had expanded into a red giant, swallowing the planet whole. Humanity's home was gone, reduced to cosmic dust eons ago. So how could there be a message from Earth still drifting through the stars? Ryan spoke up, his tone cautious. "Maybe it's not from Earth itself," he suggested. "Could it have come from a colony? Or a ship?" Daniel shook his head. "Unlikely. If humans had left Earth in large numbers, we'd know about it by now. Our history shows no record of such an exodus. This feels different." He hesitated, then added, "It feels like a goodbye." Megan Lewis, the ship's biologist, stepped closer, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "A goodbye?" she asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. "You're saying this is some kind of farewell message from an extinct species? That's a bit poetic, don't you think?" "It's possible," Daniel replied. "Think about it. If humanity knew their time was running out, if they saw their planet dying, they might have tried to leave something behind. A trace of their existence, a way to say, 'We were here.'" Laura nodded slowly, considering his words. "But why send it so far? Why aim it into deep space, where there's almost no chance anyone would find it?" "That's the part I don't understand yet," Daniel admitted. "But I think the answer lies in the origin point. If we can pinpoint exactly where this signal came from, maybe we'll get closer to understanding its purpose." Ryan continued working, piecing together fragments of the message. As he did, another phrase became clearer. "Remember us." The words echoed softly in the dimly lit control room, sending a shiver through everyone present. It wasn't just a warning or a plea. It was a desperate cry from the past, reaching across unimaginable distances to make contact. Megan broke the silence, her voice firm but uneasy. "Even if we figure out where this came from, do we really want to go there? What if it leads us into danger? We have no idea what, or who, we might find." Laura considered her words carefully. Megan had a point. Following the signal could lead them into unknown risks. But ignoring it felt wrong too. This message wasn't just a relic of humanity's past. It was a connection to their roots, a reminder of where they came from. Turning away from it would feel like turning their backs on their own history. "We'll decide what to do once we know more," Laura said finally, her tone decisive. "For now, let's focus on decoding the rest of the message and finding its source. Whatever this is, it deserves our attention." As the crew returned to their tasks, Laura gazed out the viewport at the endless expanse of stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the vastness of space, was the origin of this haunting signal. She didn't know what they would find when they reached it, but one thing was certain. The journey ahead would change all of them forever. The crew of the Solace worked tirelessly, their focus entirely on unraveling the mystery of the signal. Ryan Carter sat at his station, his eyes glued to the screens as he pieced together fragments of the message. The process was slow and painstaking, but with each new word that emerged, the tension in the room grew thicker. Laura Hayes stood nearby, watching intently, her arms crossed as she tried to make sense of the unfolding puzzle. "Got something," Ryan said suddenly, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the ship. He adjusted a few settings on his console, and the faint sound of distorted words filled the air. This time, they were clearer than before. "Follow the stars. Find us." Daniel Brooks leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "Find us?" he murmured. "That doesn't sound like a goodbye. It sounds like an invitation." Megan Lewis frowned, her skepticism evident. An invitation to what? A dead planet? A graveyard in space? "I don't like this, Captain. It feels wrong." Laura didn't respond immediately. She was too busy thinking about the implications. If the message was an invitation, It meant whoever, or whatever, had sent it wanted to be found. But why? And after 40,000 years, what could possibly remain for them to discover? Ryan continued decoding, and soon another phrase came through. We left a gift for those who come after. The word sent a ripple of excitement and unease through the crew. A gift. What kind of gift could survive tens of thousands of years in the harsh void of space? Daniel turned to Laura, his expression thoughtful. If this is real, we can't ignore it, he said. This could be one of the most important discoveries in human history. We have to follow the coordinates. Megan shook her head, her voice sharp. Or it could be a trap. We're talking about something sent by a civilization that's been extinct for longer than we can imagine. How do we know it's safe? Laura held up a hand to silence the argument before it escalated. We don't know anything for sure yet, she said firmly. But we can't just turn away. If there's even a chance this leads to something meaningful, we owe it to ourselves and to humanity to investigate. The decision made, the crew shifted their focus to preparing the ship for the journey ahead. Daniel worked on plotting the course using the coordinates embedded in the signal. As he entered the data into the navigation system, he noticed something unusual. The destination wasn't just a random point in space. It was located near a massive debris field, remnants of ancient celestial collisions. Whatever awaited them, it wouldn't be easy to reach. Meanwhile, Ryan kept working on the message, hoping to extract more clues. As he fine-tuned the filters, another fragment emerged. Beware the shadows. The ominous warning sent a chill through the room. No one spoke for a moment, the weight of the words sinking in. What does that mean? Megan asked finally, her voice quieter now. Shadows of what? I don't know, Laura admitted, but we'll find out when we get there. As the hours passed, the crew prepared the Solace for the long journey. Supplies were checked, systems were tested, and contingency plans were reviewed. Despite the uncertainty and the creeping sense of danger, there was also a spark of hope. For the first time in centuries, they had a direct link to humanity's past. Whatever waited for them at the end of the signal, it was a chance to reconnect with the lost legacy of Earth. Laura stood by the viewport, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. She felt a mix of emotions, excitement, fear, and a deep sense of responsibility. They were venturing into the unknown, chasing echoes of a world that no longer existed. But as daunting as the journey ahead seemed, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was worth it. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, was a piece of humanity waiting to be found, and she was determined to bring it home. The journey to the coordinates was anything but smooth. The Solace moved cautiously through a region of space filled with hazards, fields of jagged asteroids, clouds of radiation, and pockets of gravitational anomalies that threatened to pull the ship off course. Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the navigation screen as Daniel Brooks guided them through the treacherous path. The crew worked in tense silence, each member focused on their task. Ryan Carter sat at his station, monitoring the ship's sensors for any signs of danger. We've got another asteroid field ahead, he announced, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. It's dense. We'll need to adjust our course. Daniel nodded, his hands moving quickly over the controls. I see it, adjusting trajectory now. The ship shuddered slightly as it shifted direction, narrowly avoiding a collision with a massive rock hurtling through space. Megan Lewis watched from her seat, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She hadn't said much since they began the journey, but her unease was obvious. This feels like we're walking into a trap, she muttered under her breath. Why would anyone leave a message in such a dangerous place? Laura turned to look at her, her expression calm but firm. Maybe the danger is part of the test, she suggested. Whoever sent this message knew it wouldn't be easy to reach. They wanted to make sure only those who were truly determined would find it. Megan didn't respond, but her frown deepened. She glanced at the viewport, where the glowing debris of ancient collisions floated eerily in the darkness. The sight was both beautiful and unsettling, a reminder of how vast and unforgiving space could be. As the hours passed, strange things began to happen aboard the ship. Equipment that had been functioning perfectly started to malfunction without explanation. Lights flickered, consoles displayed errors, and the temperature in certain parts of the ship fluctuated wildly. Ryan frowned as he tried to diagnose the issues. "None of this makes sense," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "There's no reason for these systems to fail." At first, the crew dismissed the glitches as the result of the harsh environment they were traveling through. But then, something even stranger occurred. Megan reported hearing faint whispers late one night while working in the lab. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but when she mentioned it to the others, Ryan admitted he'd experienced something similar, a low murmur that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Daniel was the first to suggest there might be more to it. "What if it's not the ship?" he asked during a meeting in the command center. "What if it's something else? Something trying to communicate with us?" Laura considered his words carefully. "You think the signal is doing this?" she asked. "It's possible," Daniel replied. "If the message has been traveling for 40,000 years, maybe it's carrying more than just words. Maybe it's carrying energy, or even some kind of consciousness." The idea sent a chill through the room. No one wanted to believe it, but none of them could deny the strangeness of what they were experiencing. Laura decided to keep the crew focused on the mission. "Whatever it is, we can't let it distract us," she said firmly. "We're too close to turn back now." Finally, after days of navigating the hazardous region, the Solace approached the destination. As they emerged from the debris field, the crew saw something that took their breath away. Floating silently in the void was a massive structure unlike anything they had ever seen. It was shaped like a sphere, its surface covered in intricate carvings that glowed faintly in the dim light of distant stars. Ryan broke the stunned silence. "That's it," he whispered. "That's where the signal came from." Laura stared at the object, her heart pounding. It was both alien and familiar, its design clearly human yet far beyond anything humanity had ever created. She felt a mix of awe and apprehension as she gave the order to move closer. Whatever secrets the sphere held, they were about to uncover them. And nothing would ever be the same again. The Solace approached the massive sphere cautiously, its glowing carvings casting an eerie light across the void. Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the structure as it loomed larger in the viewport. The crew worked silently, their movements deliberate as they prepared to investigate the mysterious object. Despite their training and experience, none of them could shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far beyond their understanding. "Scanners show no signs of immediate danger," Ryan Carter reported from his station, though his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "But there's something strange about the energy readings." Daniel Brooks leaned over his console, studying the data. "It's not just energy," he said slowly. "It's like the sphere is alive. The patterns are shifting, almost as if it's responding to us." Megan Lewis frowned, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Alive? That's impossible. It's just a machine, or a relic. Machines don't respond to people." "Maybe not machines we've built," Daniel replied, his tone thoughtful. "But this isn't one of ours. This is something from humanity's past, something we don't fully understand yet." Laura nodded, her mind racing. She knew they couldn't stay aboard the ship forever. They had come too far to turn back now. "We'll send a team to explore it," she decided. "Ryan, you're with me. Daniel, you too. Megan, stay here and monitor our progress from the Solace. If anything happens, you'll need to get us out of there." Megan opened her mouth to protest, but quickly closed it again. She didn't like being left behind, but she understood the logic of the decision. Someone needed to stay aboard in case things went wrong. And deep down, she wasn't sure she wanted to step foot inside the sphere anyway. The team suited up and boarded a small shuttle, leaving the safety of the Solis behind. As they approached the sphere, its sheer size became even more apparent. It was larger than any space station they had ever seen, its surface covered in glowing symbols that seemed to pulse faintly as they drew closer. When they landed gently on a flat section of the sphere's exterior, the shuttle's engines powered down, leaving only silence. Laura was the first to step out, her boots touching the cool, metallic surface. She glanced at Ryan and Daniel, who followed close behind, their helmets reflecting the faint glow of the carvings. "Stay alert," she said quietly. "We don't know what we're dealing with." They found an opening, a circular hatch that slid open smoothly as they approached, as if inviting them inside. The interior was dimly lit, the walls lined with the same intricate carvings they had seen outside. But here, the symbols seemed to shimmer and shift, creating patterns that felt almost hypnotic. "This place feels wrong," Ryan muttered, his voice crackling through the comms. "Like it's watching us." "It probably is," Daniel replied, his tone calm but serious. "This thing was designed to communicate. Maybe it's trying to figure out who we are." As they moved deeper into the sphere, holographic projections began to appear around them. At first, they showed scenes of Earth, the blue oceans, green forests, and sprawling cities that once defined humanity's home. But as they walked further, the images grew darker. Wars erupted, skies turned gray with pollution, and finally, the planet itself was consumed by fire as its sun expanded into a red giant. Laura stopped in her tracks, staring at the haunting visions. "This isn't just a message," she whispered. "It's a story, a warning." At the center of the chamber, they found a pedestal holding a crystalline device that pulsed with soft, rhythmic light. Ryan reached out instinctively, but Laura grabbed his arm. "Wait," she said sharply. "We don't know what it does." Before anyone could respond, the device activated on its own, projecting a final recorded message. A man appeared before them, his face tired but determined. "If you're hearing this," he began, "then humanity has fallen, but perhaps not entirely. Remember us. Learn from our mistakes." The words hung heavy in the air as the team exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever they had expected to find, it wasn't this, a ghostly reminder of humanity's fragility and resilience. The recorded message continued to play, filling the chamber with the voice of a man who had long since vanished from existence. His name was William Harris, and he introduced himself as Earth's last ambassador. His tone was calm, but heavy with sorrow, as though every word carried the weight of humanity's final moments. "We knew our time was ending," William said, his image flickering faintly in the holographic projection. "Our sun betrayed us, and we were powerless to stop it. But even as our world burned, we refused to let our story die. This sphere is our legacy, a record of who we were, what we achieved, and the mistakes that led to our downfall." Laura Hayes listened intently, her heart pounding in her chest. The man's words weren't just a message. They were a plea, a desperate hope that someone, someday, would find this place and remember humanity. She glanced at Ryan Carter and Daniel Brooks, both of whom stood frozen, their faces pale with awe and disbelief. William's expression grew more urgent as he continued. "We leave this not only as a reminder of our failures, but also as a warning. Do not repeat our mistakes. Cherish your home. Protect it. And above all, never take it for granted. If you are hearing this, then perhaps there is still hope. For you, for life itself." The hologram paused briefly, and when William spoke again, his voice softened. "To whoever finds this, know that we were flawed, but we dreamed of greatness. We loved, we fought, we created, and we destroyed. Remember us, not as victims of fate, but as beings who once reached for the stars." The message ended abruptly, leaving the chamber in silence. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. The weight of what they had just witnessed settled over them like a thick fog. It wasn't just the story of humanity's end. It was a call to action, a responsibility thrust upon them without warning. Ryan finally broke the silence, his voice trembling slightly. That was incredible and terrifying. Daniel nodded slowly, his mind racing. He said this sphere holds a record of everything. Our history, our culture, our mistakes. If we can access it, we could learn so much. Maybe even prevent others from making the same errors. Laura stepped closer to the crystalline device on the pedestal, her eyes fixed on its pulsing light. But why send it so far? She asked aloud. Why aim it into deep space, where the chances of anyone finding it were so slim? It's possible they didn't have a choice, Daniel suggested. If Earth was dying, they might have sent this out blindly, hoping it would reach someone eventually. Or maybe, he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Maybe they thought future generations, or other civilizations, would be better equipped to handle it. Megan Lewis's voice crackled through their comms. Captain, how's it going down there? Her tone was tense, betraying her concern for the team. Laura activated her communicator. We're okay, Megan. We found something important. A recording explaining the purpose of this sphere. It's overwhelming. Overwhelming how? Megan asked cautiously. Before Laura could answer, the carvings on the walls began to glow brighter, casting shifting patterns of light across the chamber. The team instinctively backed away from the pedestal as the air seemed to hum with energy. Ryan glanced around nervously. But, Captain, what's happening now? I don't know, Laura admitted, her hand resting on the grip of her sidearm. But I think the sphere is reacting to us. The shimmering symbols started moving faster, forming shapes that resembled constellations. One pattern stood out, a constellation shaped like a phoenix rising from ashes. Laura stared at it, feeling an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Do you see that? She asked, pointing to the glowing image. Daniel nodded, his brow furrowed. It's like a symbol, a message within a message. As suddenly as it had begun, the glowing subsided, and the chamber returned to its dim state. The team exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to make of what they had just seen. Laura took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Let's head back to the ship, she said firmly. We need to figure out what all of this means, and decide what to do next. The journey back to the shuttle was quiet, each member of the team lost in their thoughts. They had uncovered humanity's final message, but it felt less like closure and more like the beginning of something far greater and far more uncertain. Back aboard the Solace the crew gathered in the command center to discuss what they had discovered inside the sphere. The air was thick with tension, and everyone seemed lost in their own thoughts. Laura Hayes stood at the front of the room, her arms crossed as she replayed the recording of William Harris's message on the main screen. His words echoed through the ship once more, reminding them of the immense responsibility now resting on their shoulders. We can't just leave it there, Daniel Brooks said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was firm but tinged with urgency. That sphere is a treasure trove of knowledge. Our history, our culture, everything we've forgotten over the centuries. If we walk away, we're letting humanity's legacy fade forever. Megan Lewis frowned, her skepticism still evident. And what if it's dangerous? We don't know what else is inside that thing. Those glowing symbols, the energy readings, they're not normal. What if we trigger something we can't control? Laura nodded slowly, acknowledging Megan's concerns. She's right. We need to be careful. But Daniel's point is valid too. This isn't just about us. It's about preserving what's left of humanity for future generations. Ryan Carter leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. What if we used the crystalline device to learn more? It seemed to activate when we were near it, like it was trying to communicate. Maybe it can help us understand the sphere's purpose, and whether it poses any real threat. The idea hung in the air for a moment, heavy with possibility. Laura glanced at each member of the team, weighing their reactions. Finally, she spoke. We'll try it, but only after we've taken every precaution. Ryan, I want you to analyze the device's energy signature and see if you can predict how it might behave. Daniel, work with him to figure out the safest way to interact with it. Megan, keep monitoring the sphere from here. If anything changes, if it starts emitting more energy or shows signs of activity, we pull the team out immediately. The crew nodded in agreement, and they set to work preparing for the next step. Ryan and Daniel spent hours studying the data they had collected, running simulations to anticipate how the crystalline device might respond. Meanwhile, Megan kept a close eye on the sphere through the ship's sensors, watching for any unusual activity. When they felt ready, Laura led the team back to the sphere, this time carrying additional equipment designed to protect them from potential hazards. As they entered the chamber, the carvings on the walls began to glow again, reacting to their presence. The crystalline device pulsed brighter than before, almost as if it recognized them. "Here goes nothing," Ryan muttered under his breath as he carefully placed a scanner near the pedestal. The device hummed softly, its light growing steadier as the scanner connected with it. Suddenly, a surge of information flooded the team's suits, overwhelming their systems with images, sounds, and emotions. They saw flashes of Earth's past, its beauty and its destruction. They heard voices speaking in countless languages, felt the warmth of human connection, and experienced the pain of loss. It was as though the sphere was sharing humanity's collective memory, pouring centuries of existence into their minds. Laura staggered slightly, clutching her helmet as the flood of sensations threatened to overwhelm her. "It's too much," she gasped, struggling to stay focused. Daniel grabbed her arm, steadying her. "We need to shut it down," he shouted, reaching for the scanner. But before he could disconnect it, the flow of information slowed, becoming more coherent. Among the visions, one image stood out, a constellation shaped like a phoenix rising from ashes. It repeated itself over and over, until it burned into their minds. When the surge finally stopped, the team stood in stunned silence. Laura took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she spoke. I think it's trying to tell us something. That symbol, it means renewal. Humanity wanted us to remember that even in death, hope can endure." The others nodded, their faces pale but resolute. Whatever the sphere was, it wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a beacon of hope for the future. And they were determined to carry its message forward. The crew returned to the Solace in silence, their minds still reeling from the overwhelming experience inside the sphere. Laura Hayes sat in the command chair, staring at the glowing screens that displayed data streaming from the crystalline device. The information was vast, too much for them to process all at once. But one thing was clear: the sphere wasn't just a repository of knowledge. It seemed alive in some way, as if it carried fragments of humanity's consciousness within it. Ryan Carter worked tirelessly at his station, trying to decode the flood of images and sensations they had received. "It's not just showing us Earth's past," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "It's sharing emotions, memories, even dreams. This isn't just data, it's life." Megan Lewis stood nearby, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She had been quiet since their return, her skepticism replaced by a growing unease. "If it's alive, what happens when we leave?" she asked suddenly. "What if it follows us? Or worse, what if it needs us to stay?" Laura turned to look at her, understanding the fear behind her words. "We don't know enough yet to answer those questions," she admitted. "But we can't abandon it. Not after everything we've seen." Daniel Brooks nodded in agreement. "The sphere is unstable," he added. "Its energy readings are fluctuating more than before. If we don't figure out how to stabilize it, it could collapse, or worse, explode." The thought sent a chill through the room. None of them wanted to imagine the consequences of such an event, especially given the sphere's location near the debris field. A catastrophic failure could create a chain reaction, destroying everything in its path. "We need to decide what to do next," Laura said firmly, breaking the tension. Do we try to preserve the sphere here, or do we take parts of it with us? Either way, we're running out of time. Ryan hesitated before speaking. There's another option, he said slowly. What if we broadcast its message? We could send the recording, and maybe even fragments of the data, to other star systems. Let others hear humanity's story. Megan frowned. You mean turn it into a cosmic radio station? Do we really want to do that? What if someone, or something, out there doesn't like what they hear? It's a risk, Laura acknowledged. But think about it. Humanity left this message for a reason. They wanted to be remembered. If we spread it across the galaxy, we honor their wish and maybe inspire others to avoid the same mistakes. Daniel leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. If we're going to broadcast it, we'll need to amplify the signal. That crystalline device might be able to help, but using it could drain the sphere's energy completely. Laura considered the options carefully. Leaving the sphere untouched felt wrong. It was too important to ignore. Taking it apart might destroy it, and they couldn't risk broadcasting without knowing the full consequences. Yet doing nothing felt like a betrayal of everything they had uncovered. Finally, she made her decision. We'll prepare the broadcast, she said. But first, we'll document everything we can. Ryan, extract as much data as possible while keeping the sphere stable. Daniel, work on amplifying the signal. Megan, keep monitoring the sphere's energy levels. If anything changes, let me know immediately. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, strange occurrences began to escalate aboard the ship. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, and faint whispers echoed through the corridors late at night. Megan reported seeing fleeting shadows out of the corner of her eye, though no one else was around. The sphere's influence seemed to be growing stronger, seeping into the Solace itself. Laura noticed the changes too, but she refused to let fear distract her. Whatever the sphere was, it had entrusted them with humanity's final message. As unsettling as the events were, she couldn't shake the feeling that the sphere understood their mission, and perhaps even approved of it. By the time they finished preparing the broadcast, the carvings on the sphere had begun to dim. The glowing symbols that once pulsed with energy now flickered weakly, as if the structure itself knew its purpose was nearing completion. Laura watched silently, her heart heavy with both sadness and resolve. They had uncovered humanity's legacy, and now it was their duty to share it with the stars. As the Solace powered up its transmission array, Laura whispered softly, almost to herself, "This isn't goodbye. It's a new beginning." The crew of the Solace worked with a sense of urgency as they prepared to broadcast humanity's final message. The crystalline device, now connected to the ship's communication systems, pulsed steadily, its light growing brighter with each passing moment. Laura Hayes stood in the command center, watching as Ryan Carter and Daniel Brooks coordinated the transmission. The atmosphere aboard the ship was tense but focused, everyone aware of the significance of what they were about to do. "This is it," Ryan said, his voice quiet but steady. "Once we send this out, there's no turning back." Laura nodded, her eyes fixed on the console displaying the signal's parameters. "We've come too far to hesitate now," she replied. "Let's make sure humanity's story reaches as many ears, or sensors, as possible." Daniel adjusted the settings one last time, ensuring the broadcast would cover a wide range of frequencies. "I've programmed it to repeat continuously," he explained. "Even if no one hears it right away, it'll keep traveling through space for thousands of years." Megan Lewis stood nearby, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She had been unusually quiet during the preparations, her usual skepticism replaced by a sense of unease. "What if we're wrong?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if this isn't what the sphere wanted us to do?" "We don't have all the answers," Laura admitted, "but we know one thing for certain. Humanity left this message because they wanted to be remembered. If we don't share it, we're letting their story fade into nothing." Megan didn't respond, but her expression softened slightly. She glanced at the viewport, where the glowing sphere floated silently in the distance. Its carkings had grown fainter, almost as if it were slowly fading away. Whatever energy powered it was running low, and Megan couldn't shake the feeling that the sphere itself was saying goodbye. As the countdown to the broadcast began, strange occurrences aboard the ship reached a peak. Equipment malfunctioned more frequently, and the whispers that had haunted the corridors grew louder, overlapping in a cacophony of voices. Some crew members reported seeing shadowy figures moving just out of sight, though no one could explain what or who they might be. Laura tried to stay calm, reminding herself that these phenomena were likely side effects of the sphere's declining energy. Still, she couldn't ignore the eerie sensation that something or someone was watching them. She glanced at the main screen, where the constellation shaped like a phoenix flickered faintly, as if urging her to proceed. 10 seconds to broadcast, Ryan announced, breaking the tension. The crew gathered around the consoles, their eyes glued to the monitors. The ship's systems hummed with power as the transmission array came online. When the countdown hit 0, the Solace released the signal into space. For a brief moment, the entire ship vibrated with energy, and the glowing symbols on the sphere flared brightly one last time before dimming completely. The whispers stopped, the shadows vanished, and an overwhelming silence filled the air. Laura exhaled slowly, realizing she hadn't been breathing. "It's done," she said softly. "Humanity's message is out there now." The crew exchanged glances, a mix of relief and sadness settling over them. They had completed their mission, but the weight of what they had accomplished lingered heavily in the room. As they turned their attention back to the sphere, Megan spoke up, her voice tinged with both awe and sorrow. "Do you think it knew? Do you think it understood what we did?" Laura looked out at the now darkened structure, her thoughts swirling. "I think it did," she replied. "And I think it's at peace now." For the first time since they had discovered the sphere, the crew felt a sense of closure. Humanity's legacy was no longer confined to a single relic floating in the void. It was free, carried across the stars by the very people it had inspired to remember. As the Solace prepared to leave, Laura whispered quietly, "Thank you." The Solace began its journey back towards safer regions of space, leaving the darkened sphere behind. Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the viewport as the mysterious structure shrank into the distance. It was strange how something so massive and significant could fade into nothingness, yet its impact on the crew and on humanity's future would endure for generations to come. Ryan Carter sat at his station, monitoring the broadcast signal as it continued to ripple outward through the galaxy. "It's working," he said, a note of pride in his voice. "The message is spreading farther than we ever imagined." Daniel Brooks nodded, leaning over his console to review the data. "Even if no one hears it right away, it'll keep going," he added. "Who knows? Maybe someday, someone, or something, will find it and understand." Megan Lewis stood quietly near the back of the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She had been reluctant to trust the sphere, but now she felt a strange sense of gratitude. "Do you think anyone will listen?" she asked softly, her tone uncharacteristically vulnerable. Laura turned to face her, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "We can't know for sure," she admitted, "but even if only one person or one civilization hears it, that's enough. Humanity's story won't be forgotten." As the hours passed, the crew settled into a quiet rhythm, each lost in their thoughts. The ship's systems hummed steadily, a comforting contrast to the chaos they had experienced near the sphere. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was a sense of calm aboard the Solace. That night, Laura sat alone in her quarters, staring at the glowing constellation etched into her logbook. The phoenix rising from ashes, the symbol that had repeated itself throughout their journey, seemed to pulse faintly under the dim light. She couldn't shake the feeling that it represented more than just renewal. It was a reminder of resilience, of hope enduring even in the darkest times. She picked up her pen and began to write. Asterisk today, we carried humanity's final message into the stars. We came seeking answers, but we found something greater, a legacy worth preserving. Earth may be gone, but its spirit lives on, not just in the memories we uncovered, but in the actions we take moving forward. We are flawed, yes, but we dream of greatness. And maybe, just maybe, those dreams will inspire others to reach for the stars. Asterisk. When she finished writing, Laura closed the logbook and leaned back in her chair, letting out a long breath. The weight of their mission still rested heavily on her shoulders, but it no longer felt crushing. Instead, it felt like purpose. The next morning, the crew gathered in the command center for a final debriefing. Laura addressed them, her voice steady and clear. What we did wasn't easy, she began, but it was necessary. Humanity left us a gift, a reminder of who they were and what they hoped for. Now, it's our job to honor that gift by carrying their story forward. Megan spoke up, her usual skepticism replaced by determination. So what happens next? Do we go home? Or do we keep searching for signs of life? Laura smiled faintly. Both, she replied. We'll head back to report what we found, but this isn't the end of our journey. There's still so much out there waiting to be discovered. Humanity's message has been sent, but it's up to us to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep hoping. As the Solace charted a course for home, the crew felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and the haunting echoes of humanity's past, but they had emerged stronger because of it. The sphere's message would continue to travel through space, reaching ears they might never meet, but its impact on the crew was undeniable. They were no longer just explorers. They were carriers of a legacy, and as the stars stretched endlessly before them, they knew their work was far from over. Somewhere out there, hidden among the vast expanse of the cosmos, were stories waiting to be told, and the Solace would be ready to hear them.